back and welcome to Vlogmas Day 6. This is going to be finally my November wrap up. If you have missed any of my previous Vlogmas videos, I will leave a playlist up here so you can go ahead and catch up. It includes my December TBR, so that gives you a bit of a clue about what I've read this month. I have my festive earrings and my festive jumper and my festive cup of coffee that actually matches my festive jumper really well. I like that. I do have quite a few books here that I don't have a physical copy of to show you, so apologies, but my blog post will be up, if not already, then very soon, and my blog is always linked in the description box below, so if you want to see more information or want links to my reviews, then please go ahead and check that out. So as always, break these down into ebooks, physical books and audiobooks, and as always, audiobooks is the biggest category and ebooks is the smallest category. As always, I feel like I did read more ebooks this month, and then I have a few ebooks on my TBR for December, so hopefully that should be a nice chunky bit of my wrap up, but who knows, we shall see. A ton of holds just came in my library audiobooks. So the first ebook that I have to tell you about is A Million Dreams by Danny Atkins, which I just love Danny Atkins' writing. She's just moved publisher, and so I was interested to see what she would produce with this new publisher, but she is just as awesome. I have a full written review of this one on my blog today, so if you want to know my detailed thoughts about that one, then go ahead and click the link to my blog, but I do highly recommend it. Then I also have a review on my blog of Fairy Rock by Stephen Watt, which is a Scottish crime novel written in verse, which was really interesting. Very, very kind of poetic. I loved the language that he used. However, it is very gory and very violent. So if that is not your thing, maybe this one isn't for you. But if you like a bit of crime and you like a bit of poetry, this is actually a brilliant crossover. So it got a thumbs up from me, and because it's written in verse, it was a very quick read as well. Then we have Love Songs for Skeptics, which again, I do already have a written review on my blog. This is a debut novel about our main character who is skeptical and has a whole love songs playlist that we realise isn't actually love songs or aren't actually love songs, and we see her kind of friendships and relationships change, and yeah, I enjoyed this one, and as I say, I have more thoughts over on my review on my blog. So now on to physical books. I have a few to show you. First of all, I read Day Zero by Kelly DeVos, which came out at the beginning of November, and she very kindly sent me this proof copy for me to review, so this is why it's not like properly bound, which was very exciting. This one was such a page turner. It's Doomsday, and our main character is this amazing female coder who's been prepared for Doomsday by her parents, and so really holds her own throughout the course of this novel. This book is a duology, so we kind of end with a lot more questions than we began with, but it was super exciting, so I definitely recommend this one. It's young adult, and I do already have a full written review on my blog, so you can go ahead and check that out. And then a couple of poetry books, which I am going to talk more in depth about in an entire poetry video for you. So I'll just mention these very briefly. These are both repeat writers for me. The first one of these is Masquerade by Cyrus Parker. I really liked the Dropkick Romance, which was also by Cyrus Parker. And this one takes a slightly darker look, but is sort of similar themes and a similar feeling to the previous novel, collection of poetry. And then I also read Great Goddesses by Nikita Gill, which I'm going to talk about two Nikita girl books in that poetry video, but this is one where we've got bodies of almost prose as well as some poetry and some illustrations in there as well. So those are 2 physical books I read this month. And then one that I feel like I haven't talked about it on here or on kind of social media or my blog enough yet, because I just needed time to digest it. I picked this book up thinking, oh, I'll read a couple of these essays and you know, put it down and kind of come back to it later in November, it being Nonfiction November and what have you, and picked it up and just like devoured it, couldn't stop reading it. It made me very emotional. It was just so powerful and I felt very seen reading it. And this is The Other F Word, a celebration of fat and fierce, and is a collection of several amazing writers. It's got these awesome end papers. Amazing writers talking about various different aspects of being fat, and it is intersectional as well, and I just loved every moment of it and could identify with so much of what went on in the book, and just I cannot recommend this enough. This is a library book copy, but I would definitely consider buying my own copy so that I can have this and reread it. And it was probably my favorite non-fiction pick for November, just because it was so powerful and just I cannot sing this book's praises highly enough or loudly enough. If you are in any way interested in reading about being fat or picking up something different in the non-fiction zone, then definitely go to this one next, see if your library has it and request it for sure. Just absolutely loved it. And now we go on to audiobooks. I have a few physical copies of audiobooks here for you. Let's take a quick pause. So yes, as always, especially with non-fiction, my audiobook list is longer than any other list, but all the physical ones I have here are all fiction, so that kind of gives you a clue. So this one I've been wanting to read for a while, and I saw that my local library back home in the UK had it on overdrive, so I downloaded the audio of this one, and I really enjoyed the fact that I did the audio of it, because we have some Welsh characters and some Scottish characters and some English characters in here, and the narrator does a really good job of giving those characters the accents that they require. And this is Never Greener by Ruth Jones. I have an event vlog where I filmed some of Ruth Jones talking at the kind of event for this book. She did a tour with this book, and this was with Chorleywood Books, and so this is a signed copy of the book as well, and it's just taken me like a year and a half to read, but that's okay because I got there eventually. I enjoyed it, and it doesn't feel like a debut novel. I think because Ruth's already such an amazing screenwriter, we're all so excited for the Gavin and Stacey Christmas special, right? So yeah, I think because she's got all this writing background, it was just kind of natural that she wrote this novel, and I'm kind of excited to see what she reads next, but really recommend the audiobook of this one. It was excellently done. Then I did a buddy read this month. This was We Met in December by Rosie Curtis. Now this is also a signed physical copy that I have, because my lovely friend Hayley won me a copy over on Twitter, and so it is a signed copy, and we both got sent a copy. Rosie Curtis sent mine here to Denver, and Hayley and I have been reading this one. I finished listening to the audiobook of it, and she was reading the physical book of it, and so we got different perspectives. I will say that there are 2 characters, one is called Jess and one is called Jen, and I said to Hayley, oh, I'm really getting a bit confused because there's a Jess and a Jen, and Hayley said to me, but Jen is G-E-N and Jess is J, and I was like, oh, because I'd done the audiobook, I hadn't heard that. I just heard the J sound. So yeah, if you get your characters easily confused, maybe do the physical copy. This is the UK paperback edition, but the US edition is like a darker blue, and my library does have physical copies and audio copies of the US edition of this, so I can possibly feel a UK versus US cover comparison going on for this one, because they're quite different. But yeah, if you are in the US and thinking, oh, I need a Christmas novel to add to my little TBR for December, then do recommend this one. It's not super Christmassy, but a lot of the like fun stuff, the big moments happen in December, so just a heads up on that one. And then another one that was a little bit of a surprise as to how much I loved it. I listened to the audiobook of The Prom, a novel which is based on the Broadway musical. Really want to go and see this musical more than anything right now, because the novel itself was so good and so fun. All it takes is you and me and a song, and this book explores all sorts of different themes and is very intersectional as well. As you can see from the size of it, it was quite a quick listen. I listened to it over the course of one day whilst I was doing things around the house, and I just absolutely loved it. It's got that Broadway aspect of it. It's got all these fantastically like brilliant and queer characters, and the humor in it is also quite adult. Like, I felt like the humor was almost directed at me, even though I was reading this and this is a YA novel. But yeah, sorry, this is the library copy, so it's super shiny. We've got all the Christmas lights shining on it right now. But yeah, I absolutely love this and really recommend it. And the audio has some music in it as well, so I think the audio probably pips it as being the best format to enjoy this in, because it does have some music and a little bit of singing in there as well, which is always great when you are reading a novel based on a musical. And then another one which I have a whole video talking about, I listened to the audiobook of Let It Snow by John Green, Lauren Johnson and Lauren Miracle. This was a reread for me. The first time I read this book, I read the physical copy. This time I listened to the audiobook, which I thought was incredibly well done. And I do have a whole book versus movie talking about this one, so I will leave it linked up here in case you haven't seen it, because they did release the Netflix adaptation of it on Netflix at the beginning of the month, and it was wonderful, and I feel like I need to watch it again. Now it's actually December and I've got my Christmas tree up, and I think I would enjoy a rewatch of that. But you know, December TBR is calling as well. What's a girl to do? And then a few more non-fiction November audiobooks. I listened to I listened to I Remember Nothing by Nora Ephron, which is essays from her. It's a very short listen. I think it's about 3 hours long, so if you're listening on double speed, it's just over an hour and a half. It was interesting. She, again, being such a kind of prolific screenwriter, it's always interesting to hear what she has to say about aging, what she has to say about being kind of unnecessarily nice when she doesn't have to be. Always interesting. I listened to the majority of it on a plane journey, so that was good. Then I listened to Me by Elton John. I have ordered the physical copy of this one because I would like to have a look at the pictures and have a look and see how the book is laid out. But the audiobook is read, the foreword and the prologue type bit is done by Elton John, and then the rest of it is read by Taron Egerton. So when we have bits concerning George Michael, Rod Stewart, Elton John's mum, other people in his life, Taron Egerton does amazing accents for these people, so it is worth listening to just to hear him doing all these accents for all these different people. The book itself was a really entertaining read. I learned a few things that I didn't know already, and having come off the back of really enjoying Rocket Man and watched that a couple of times in the cinema, it was interesting to see where they kind of changed a few things in the movie to make it more cinema friendly or more kind of dramatic, like changing the order that history happened, which is kind of strange in a way. But this is also good if you are a fan of a bit of celebrity gossip. So if you like some gossip and you like knowing a few tidbits about people that you may not have already known, Elton John really spills the beans in this one, and it was a really, really interesting listen, and something that I wouldn't rule out listening to again. I think I bought this one on audiobook, and I also have bought the physical book, so it's definitely one that is accessible for me to reread. Maybe not anytime soon, but definitely reread worthy. Then I listened to #IMomSoHard, which is based on, I believe they have a YouTube channel. I feel like I should have checked this out before making this video, but I'd seen it all over Instagram. People had been sent review copies and then went to events with these women, and it's just more honest stories about motherhood and identity and what it's like being a wife and a mother, and what it's like pre-mother friendships and post-mother friendships, and just brutally honest. But it's the fact that we've got these two women talking about it, and they are best friends, and so they kind of talk back and forth, and they talk about how they support each other and how they mother differently from each other, and how they, you know, organize things differently from each other when it comes to family life and things like that. And there's some really funny moments in there, and even as a non-mom, I could still identify with things that my friends have gone through, or they do talk about the fact that even friends who don't have kids can be part of that support system, and I just hoped that I was that for my friends who have kids. Then more non-fiction for you. It was a good month for non-fiction, considering the fact that it was non-fiction November. I listened to The Hormone Diaries by Hannah Witten. I had a fairly decent commute to work one day, and I basically listened on the way there, listened on the way back, and I listened in the gym, and then I was done. So it was quite a short listen as well, and again I listened on double speed, although Hannah Witten does talk quite quickly, so I think maybe I just listened on 1.5 speed for this one. But this one was really interesting, having really enjoyed Hannah Witten's Doing It a couple of years ago. Enjoyed reading that whole thing on a plane with the cover, and Let's Talk About Sex, sticking out into the aisle, which was great fun. But this one is The Bloody Truth About Our Periods, and she talks about all different aspects of periods, the start of them, the end of them, when you don't have them but you want them, when you have them but you don't want them, the side effects, what you use during your periods. And it was brutally honest. It had other people's letters in there, and it's all based around her YouTube channel, her YouTube series, talking about the Hormone Diaries. And so if you are looking for something that does talk honestly about any of those aspects and more, then I do really recommend this one. I really like Hannah's YouTube channel. I really loved her last book, so highly recommend this one. Then again, one that I managed to listen to on a decent commute and back. I've had some interesting commutes recently. I listened to What Would the Spice Girls Do by Lauren Bravo, which looks at the girl power generation and where they are now. So I was in my first year of secondary school, or my second year of secondary school, when A Wannabe came out. So this is me, this is my generation, and so it was interesting to hear what she had to say. And again, it features other writers and other contributors as well, and it talks about that whole, yes, they were a manufactured band, but did they stay that way? Which is always interesting, because people talk about the Spice Girls and people go, oh well, it's just a manufactured band, and you know, they weren't really those identities and what have you. But yeah, and you know, platform trainers are back. So then more non-fiction. For non-fiction November, listened to I Am C3PO, The Inside Story by Anthony Daniels, which was an interesting listen. I learned a lot about Star Wars and those actors as a community from listening to this one. However, you can definitely see how he changed as a person from the very first couple of films into where we are now with the saga. He starts off being kind of very grateful and not complaining when he was, you know, hurt by the costume and, you know, long days without being able to go to the toilet because he was screwed into a gold medal suit. And then now we have almost kind of diva-ish behaviour. And I don't know if when he was writing this, he realised that it goes in that direction, but you can really hear the difference in the way he speaks about the films and the way he speaks about what he went through in the first three versus the next three versus the next three. And it's interesting hearing his take on the different directors and the different writers and the different people involved with the newer films as well. So if you're a Star Wars fan, definitely recommend this one, and he does read the audiobook, so highly recommend it on audio. Another one read by the author, we have The Body, A Guide for Occupants by Bill Bryson. I love a Bill Bryson book. When he releases something new, I will always buy it and always try and do it on audio, because if he isn't reading them, the other guy who reads his books sounds really like him, and so you can imagine that it's Bill Bryson talking to you, and they're always really well done. This one deals with all aspects of the body, and something I really like is that he deals with the various areas of the body, but then he has a separate chapter talking about illnesses and talking about medical treatment. He doesn't cover that necessarily in the different areas of the body, so it doesn't get kind of long and tedious going into every aspect. He just talks about the actual part of the body, starting with the top and working our way down. And then finally, one more fiction audiobook. I listened to The Bookish Life of Nina Hill, which I had seen mixed reviews about. I've seen a couple of people loving it and a couple of people being disappointed in it, and so I was interested to hear for myself, and I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good listen. There's a little bit of romance in there, and I just really identified with the main character. The main character works in a bookshop, but she also schedules herself time to get lost in a book on a Thursday evening. She does trivia every Tuesday. I do trivia every Tuesday, and I like scheduling time to spend with my books as well. So I really identified with her, and I really enjoyed that one. So yeah, if you were kind of on the fence about it, I recommend it. And yeah, the romance aspect of it didn't get too saucy, didn't get too graphic, so if you're worried about that aspect of it, don't be. I really enjoyed it. So out of the 19 books that I read this month, 8 were non-fiction. I felt like there was more non-fiction in there than just 8, but that's fine. I think that, you know, making sure you read 8 non-fiction books, that's 2 a week if we're going with kind of a month being 4 weeks. 8 non-fiction books is pretty good for a month that focuses on non-fiction, and I'm quite surprised that I managed to get through 19 books as well. If I do that again in December, then I will definitely hit my Goodreads goal, so that is good. Reads. Yes, like I say, links to reviews on my blog in the description box. Anything else you would like to see during Vlogmas, let me know in the comments. Always happy to accommodate. I've had a couple of suggestions so far, so thank you very much for those. If you've made it to the end of this very long video, I'm nearly finished my cup of coffee, so I'm sure you are. Well done. Go and get yourself another cup of coffee. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up, and make sure you are subscribed so that tomorrow's Vlogmas video lands in your subscription feed, and I will see you tomorrow for day 7. Bye.